Okay, how are we doing today? Good, nice, very good. So as Josh said, my name is Father James. You might have seen me at some of the other alphas, just kind of like bebopping around. I don't want to scare anybody away, so I just kind of hang out in the back for the most part. Los que hablan español, lo siento, todo eso estará en inglés, pero esperemos que posiblemente, por causa de mis emociones o algo como así, como se dice, excitement, que podrían, recibir algo como así, pero bueno, por lo menos. So I've been a priest for like 3 years now, we're starting our 3rd year, sorry. And today we just want to start off with a little bit of a question, namely that why would we stand, why would we sing, why would we praise or thank God? Why would we worship God? And it's important because in Christian tradition, we know, and even going back to Jewish tradition, God invited, and he not only invited, he even mandated that we worship him. And if he's forcing us to do this, well, there's kind of an important question of why? Why should I? Especially, could watch the Bears, although they're not very good, so not a good excuse to miss Sunday Mass nowadays, but why? In Romans chapter 8, we read, "For creation awaits with eager expectation the revelation of the children of God. For creation was made subject to futility in hope that creation itself would be set free from slavery to corruption and to share in the glorious freedom of the children of God." St. Paul says that all of creation is eagerly awaiting something, and that something is this glorious freedom of the children of God. But if there is freedom, well, then there must be something to be freed from. And if there's worship, then there must be something that makes God worthy, worthship, of being worshipped. There must be a reason why. And that is what I think our Lord wants to reveal to us today. Why he is not only asking us to worship him, but why we should want to, why he is worthy of our worship. And this is commonly referred to as the good news. But in order to understand the good news, we first have to understand the bad news. And that is quite simply this: that apart from God, we do not have hope. Apart from God, we do not have hope. Hope in the face of death, or hope in the face of evil. And now, that might sound a little harsh, but let's think about it. What is hope? Hope is an eager expectation of things to come. It is a trust that something good is coming. And so with this in mind, let me just ask you, in the face of death, that last beat of our hearts, that last breath in our lungs, what can we guarantee to come? Can anyone here raise themselves from the dead? Can anyone here guarantee their own life after death? Or why are we so sure that there is anything beyond what we can just scientifically see? The person breathes their last, their heart stops, their brain stops, but we don't see anything else. Death will come for us whether we cling to our lives or we give it away freely. And unless there's something beyond us, something beyond just what we can currently see, death is like falling asleep and not waking up. And that's bad news, especially when we encounter that with our loved ones. And to make things worse, in what little time that we do have in life, we experience so many great evils, whether it's sickness or betrayal or suffering or loss. And so in this way, all of us are in various ways prisoners, helplessly at the mercy of so many evils that we encounter every day in our universe. And for most of us, we know these burdens. We know this constant weight, constant heaviness that can be on our lives that, like chains that we carry, can keep our hands and our heads and our hearts pointed down. Through the chains of bitterness, of resentment, of finding ourselves doing what even we dislike. I don't want to do this, I don't like that I do it, and yet I find myself nevertheless falling into it once again. Of feeling lost and lonely in a universe where there's over 7 billion people on the planet and counting, and in an age where we are the most connected that we have ever been, with most technologically advanced, and yet how is it that in that kind of scenario, surrounded by more people than ever before, we're still experiencing such great loneliness? And finally, then, when we tally up our own contribution to the evil that is in the world, it can be hard to look in the mirror sometimes. Am I really that kind of person? Am I only as good as the goals which I achieve, the life that I build for myself? Because if that's the case, then what happens when I fall? Not just if I fall, but when I fall and when I fail, because we all know that that happens. It's happened in the past and it will keep happening, and if I'm only as good as that which I can build for myself, and then on top of that, there's this gnawing accusation that we might encounter in the back of our heads and sometimes rears itself, tearing me down, assaulting my dignity, questioning whether anyone could really love me, all the while justifying and encouraging this evil that I've done. Friends, I just want to be honest with you for a moment. I remember about 12 years ago, at the end of the day, just lying in my bed and trying to fall asleep and just experiencing this emptiness inside. And as far as I was concerned, I had really good career prospects. I had a steady girlfriend, basically could get whatever I want. I grew up in Naperville, so, but as I lay there in the darkness of my room, there was just this emptiness inside. And I couldn't understand why. The reality is that God is not optional. We need God in our lives. If we're going to think that we can be happy and to flourish apart from the one who created us and sustains us in existence, then we're just kidding ourselves. Because without him, we wouldn't even be here. Nothing would. And we cannot compete against the evil that we encounter alone. But nor do we have to. As Christians, we know why our experience is the way it is. Our first parents fell into sin all the way at the beginning, and we were created for God. But in rejecting that reality, sin entered the world, and this explains much of the suffering and this discord that we experience in our own hearts and in our own minds and in our own lives. And we are born into this. We're immersed into it. It is a world and a humanity that has fallen and in serious need of healing, and we all know that. And the craziest thing is that the greatest accomplishment of our slave driver is to convince us that there's nothing different from just life with these chains. That this is just how it is. I just kind of have to accept it, shoulder the burden, and keep moving along. Keep your head down, because this is all there is. And I need to make the most of it. I need to make the most of my life. And that's it. That's the bad news. But into that darkness, we know came a light, if at first insignificant. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world knew him not. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of flesh, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. His name is Jesus Christ, and he promises hope and life to all who follow him. And I began to taste this freedom in my life, and in the place of that emptiness being filled, when I finally began to say yes to the Lord in my life. And for me, in a very concrete way, that was pursuing the priesthood. And now you don't have to become a priest in order to, experience that for yourself, so don't worry. But we do have to say yes to the Lord, for him to be the Lord and the King of our lives. And perhaps your parents already said yes for you in your baptism, but we're still free to either receive that deeply ourselves and to accept that and to live out of that, or to not. That choice is still ours. All of creation awaits with eager expectation to hear our response to this good news. And even as Jesus says, all of the angels in heaven await to hear that yes. That there is more rejoicing in heaven over one person who turns to God than over 99 who have no need of doing so. We were made not for slavery, but for freedom. Freedom to be healed, freedom to be whole, freedom to be known and loved, and to live in the fullness of life that all of our hearts long for. There is something different, and our Lord offers that to each and every one of us. But at the end of the day, he has made his choice. The rest of the story and the good news, that choice is up to us.